2014, he decided and announced that he has only 4 priorities in foreign policy. No non-alignment, nothing of that kind. He said first is economic development, first priority. As I said, foreign policy is for economic development. And also expanding FDI, that is foreign direct investment. Second, he said, is security. And third, he said, neighborhood. And the fourth is Indian diaspora. So these are my priorities. And he said, I'll go to any country who helps me in any of these 4. And you know, he went to 52 countries in 2 years. And so that's why he became the... Vajpayee used to be called Voyage Pai because he used to travel a lot. So now, what do they call? Asianet calls him Prayana Mantri, I think, not Pradhana Mantri. So anyway, but if you look at all the places where he went, he never wasted any of his trips, I can assure you. He went only where he had things to get out of these 4. And the only country which has relevance for all the 4 was United States. So he went to United States 5 times in his first term of office. He cultivated Barack Obama. They used to call himself Barack and Narain and all that. And a president of the United States came a second time to India in the history of the world. It has not happened. First time an American president going to one country twice. An American president doesn't go like that. Of course, they go to Japan or Germany or France. So first time in history he came because there was an understanding that India and the US will get together and work together in the Indian Ocean against the Chinese. That was the understanding. So Modi realized that we cannot beat the Chinese ourselves and you need a powerful friend. And so the relationship grew particularly because of this understanding reached between Obama. And therefore we have now called it, Mr. Modi's foreign policy, an assertive foreign policy. And that is the 5th stage in our relationship. He is very articulate. Of course, he speaks in Hindi, but he speaks with tremendous force. And it became, you remember those days, 2014 to 15, 16, it was like an intoxication for India that our foreign policy is so welcomed. Modi became a hero, Times Magazine front page, and even a Nobel Prize was proposed for him. So it was really a big assertive foreign policy. He openly spoke out what he wanted. He spoke against China, his support of the United States. And in 2016, on his 5th visit to Washington, he said, from today, we have a new symphony. You know the word, symphony is music. He said, you have an orchestra and a symphony. So he says the orchestra is the same, but the symphony will be new in India-US relations. That is a dramatic statement he made. And everything was beautiful and happy till Mr. Donald Trump arrived on the scene. Everything collapsed exactly as they were built. So 8th November, I'll never forget, I was in the Asianet studio talking about Trump's re-election. Nobody expected it, and we were analyzing it. And then I saw Modi in the corner of the studio on another screen. So I was wondering what he was doing and why they were playing it onto the studio. Then we started getting calls from outside, hundreds of calls, saying that, what are you doing? You're talking about Trump, but demonetization has taken place. And then the anchor turned to me and said, Mr. Ambassador, tell us about demonetization. So I said, I know nothing about demonetization. And that changed the world. These 2 things hit him that night. Trump becoming the President of the United States and his own self-inflicted trouble of demonetization. Till then, till that day, I think he was flying around the world as a great hero. But both these changed his life altogether. Because Trump became totally unpredictable. You never know where he stands. Even today, nobody knows. Even he doesn't know where he stands. So this very carefully built relationship collapsed overnight. Of course, we were all looking for good points about him. I used to write saying that, Trump may not be bad because he hates terrorism. That's a good point. He hates China. Good point. He loves Indians in the United States. Good point. He's a businessman, so he'll want to make money. So all these 4 points I kept saying, these are good for us, but Trump was not hearing that. He started saying, Indians must spend more money in Afghanistan. They must buy more things from United States because our balance of trade is in India's favor. So he started coming up with all these new issues. But the only thing that he could understand was he was willing to buy defense equipment from him. So Mr. Modi did that also. Because his criterion is, how many weapons do you buy from us? Okay, you remember when Khashoggi was killed by the Saudi Arabians in Turkey. So somebody went up to Trump and said, Saudi Arabians have really done bad. This should never have happened. You kill your own national in a foreign country and all that. Then Trump said, how much weapons are they buying from us, the Saudi Arabians? Somebody said, oh, that is $385 billion, the biggest contract ever. Then he said, they can do nothing wrong. Saudi Arabia, as long as buy $385 billion from us, Saudi Arabia is fine. So he's the best friend of the king of the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. So such thing. And therefore India realized that if Mr. Modi had to see him even, we had to sign a contract. And so our defense cooperation went up. There were several things, several agreements which Manmohan Singh refused to sign. He signed so that we became a close defense partner of the US, and that is what led to the visit of Mr. Modi to Washington. And Trump hesitatingly embraced him, because Modi embraces everybody. Because everybody doesn't embrace like that. They don't embrace men, at least. So you could see, if you see those pictures, Trump had no choice. He was going to move back, and then he was going and hugging him. And the Japanese and the Chinese, they never touch men, So they don't like this hugging, but he hugged them also. So that's called hug-plomacy, not diplomacy. Anyway, now he has matured. He doesn't now hug the Chinese Prime President at all. So that is where we stand now. The problem is that Indo-US relationship is very unpredictable. So he's not able to depend on them. So he changed his policy again. That is why he went to Wuhan, this famous place where, the corona virus has struck. That's a city called Wuhan. He went there, Mr. Narendra Modi, and had a private meeting with Xi Jinping. And he gave a message that we will not be so close to the US. We will not oppose you in the Indian Ocean. I mean, these are all informal, no record. And then equally he went to Sochi, to Russia, and gave similar assurances to Putin. Because China and Russia were getting very worried about India's closeness to the United States. So he said he reset the relations. We made some concessions to China, made more weapons from Russia, the 400 missiles, etc., etc. So now where do we stand in our foreign policy? What we are trying to do is to be equidistant from all these three. Samaduram, like NSS. Keep away from all the groups. So with the United States, our relationship is not bad, but not as good as it used to be. With Russia, we have always had good relationship. Now we have strengthened our relationship with Russia. China, we always had bad relationship, but we are trying to contain that, giving assurance to China that we are not joining up with anybody else. With Obama, the understanding was India, Japan, United States and Australia will make a group called quadrilateral and fight against the Chinese. That was the understanding we had. So we have played it down. And now what he is looking for is, he doesn't say so, is for a fourth group under India. There is United States, there is Russia, there is China, and as a fourth group of powers, we want to form and become a major power ourselves. But who are going to be with us, we don't know. It could be France, it could be Germany, it could be Japan, it could be Australia. So that kind of a group, which is not dependent on any of the other three. And that is what he is working on at this moment. So that is the whole story in what, 1 hour? I know.
We have time up to
Okay, let us see. But let me conclude this. So what you have to remember is these changes, you must know the various stages in foreign policy, but the basic element of strategic autonomy has remained. Because we are a very proud people. We don't like to be, even when we were very close to Soviet Union, we never became their slaves. And even with the US, we did not do. So we don't do that. So that has remained as whenever things went wrong, we stood our ground, even if it meant relationship, like to the US and with the Soviet Union. So there is that continuity. Of course, Mr. Modi does not talk about non-alignment, because he says we are aligning with anybody, whoever will give us the benefits. So he wants to call it a multi-alignment foreign policy, or selective alignment foreign policy. But so he has no taboo about anybody, any relation. He has very good relations with Israel, excellent relations with Saudi Arabia, very good relations with the UAE. One of his greatest victories was that the Arabs trust him. And particularly because we have so many Malayalis in the Gulf, he didn't want any quarrel with the Arabs. And so that's successful. So on the whole, he has been able to maintain a certain amount of stability and balance in our relationship. But his objective is to basically another pole. First we had remember the two poles, bipolar world. That was once United States and the Soviet Union. That is what we began with, bipolar world. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it became a unipolar world. So now, till very recently, it was a unipolar world. So United States in the center and everybody else around. But now in the last 1 year or so, Putin has become very powerful and strong. Xi Jinping has become very powerful and strong. So we have a multipolar world. From bipolar to unipolar to multipolar world. And our hope is that we will be the fourth pole in this. That is his objective. And that he doesn't say, of course. Then people will say, who will join you? He doesn't want to answer that question. But he is quietly working with Gulf countries, quietly working with France and Germany, because Trump has made all of them angry. And so they might be more amenable to become friendly with India. So this is the situation. So we have gone through all these changes. So these phases you must know. What are the main features and what are they called? The idealistic period, the pragmatic period, the globalized period, and now assertive period of diplomacy, and associate with each Prime Minister. So that is the story. And that is the first agenda item in your syllabus. That is foreign policy review of foreign policy. So this can go on forever. There are so many elements in it. I was just running through it. But this much, if you can remember, that would be more than enough. Okay?